Hello, cowpokes, and welcome back to RimWorld Rawhide Part 6, where we are looking at the aftermath of those two devastating raids that we had last episode. Though nobody died, things just don't feel the same around the leather capital city. There's a somber tone whispering through the air. Now, to really start us off, Albina decided to attack one of our cows. Most likely this was induced by the trauma caused by those two massive raids, so we had to go put a stop to that. Then at one point, Mole decided to leave us. Well, that was a problem, but also another problem. She was carrying Brigga, who was going to be doctored, so she was taking her and essentially going to kidnap her and leave. Then there was the calm before the storm. Everyone was sitting around a filthy dining room eating berries and other stuff in piles of vomit. Then began the storm. We had boomalopes go absolutely insane. So we gathered everyone up into the town amongst the wreckage and other destroyed things and started fighting with them and tried to survive, essentially. The boomalopes exploding, of course, caused a lot of fires, and we had to fight those and try to put those out. And as if God himself were trying to tell us something horrible was about to happen, lightning struck one of our cows and just outside our crops. Little did we know what was to come. After some time, the trauma from the last two massive raids had kind of went away a little bit, and we were repairing things and actually piling up the bodies, and we finally felt like we were moving forward. Finally. At this point, Brigga had a massive infection that we were attempting to tend to keep her alive. But unfortunately, we were unable to save her, and she ended up passing away due to the major infection. We dug a hole next to the courthouse where we would begin laying our dead, and we had a beautiful funeral for her as well. Everyone talked about the good old days when Brigga was alive and said a few words, sung a few songs. It was all quite a beautiful process, and everyone felt slightly better afterwards. Then, out of nowhere, in the middle of the night, once again we were being raided. The storm had arrived. Another massive group of tribesmen were coming to attack us. The problem was this time we had basically no defenses, and our people felt that it was finally time to make a stand. What was it that drove our people to go and fight the tribespeople out in the middle of the desert at night? Could it be confidence? Could it be arrogance? Or could it just be faith in what they believed in? Fortune may favor the bold, but faith and fortune were not in our favor today, and our people began to drop like flies. The tribespeople fought back fiercely, and finally, we knew defeat. One of our people stood against the rest of the tribespeople with a gun in his hands, screaming every breath, but unfortunately he was eventually downed, and then one of the tribespeople seen him and began to kidnap him, as well as they had been doing with many of our other people, unfortunately. And after that was done, the tribespeople went into town and began attacking everything in sight. Mole grabbed her rifle and hid behind a building and started firing and trying to survive. And then out of nowhere, an angel sent from God, perhaps, a man in black arrived with a pistol, maybe hearing of the commotion, seeing the fires burning, and he came to our aid. He came to save us, or what was left of us at least. The man in black did save Mole, and he walked by the burning ruins of our town. Unfortunately, our animals were leaving, our town was in rubble and on fire. I was beginning to wonder, is it time that we give up? One of our colonists was even catatonic. He may not stay that way for long, but will we be able to support him while we ourselves are trying to survive? And then finally, a group of man-hunting tortoises had entered the area, and I finally started thinking to myself, alright, let's leave. There's no point in staying here and getting killed by turtles. And let's even leave one of our colonists. I didn't want to, but I felt it was a necessary sacrifice. So in the dead of night, our man in black coyote carried Mole off into the distance. The two of them were off to greener pastures and hopefully a new home. While they were doing that, I was grieving our dead. While I was grieving our dead, our colonist Trakenser came back out of the catatonic state to a new colony that had been destroyed. The last time Trakenser had seen our colony, everyone was alive. There were no monstrous turtles attacking people. We had been raided, but nothing bad like this had happened. So I sent him out, though, shortly thereafter to where Coyote and Mole were. They were tending to each other. I think Mole had an infection. The problem with Mole having an infection, I forgot that Mole had an infection. It didn't get tended to until a little too late. So not long after Trakenser had actually caught up with him, Mole ended up dying of an infection out there in the sand. That night we dug a shallow grave for Mole under the pale moonlight. And then the following day in the hot desert sun, we ended up having a lackluster funeral for her. After the funeral, Coyote dug a little hole out for him and Trakenser to actually sleep in that night so that they wouldn't get eaten by wolves or other wildlife. Speaking of aggressive animals, the very next day a boomalope started charging at the lads. Luckily, Trakenser's pistol was able to knock it down where it would no longer be charging at them, attempting to bite them and kill them. But not long after that, Trakenser went catatonic once again. This seems to be a trend for him in this series. Now, quite a while had passed, though, and finally, we had somebody calling out to us who was actually being held captive at a local tribal post. They said that they would join us if we went and rescued them. Thus, we gathered up what little bit of food that we had and weapons, and we set out for an adventure. When we arrived at the outpost, there was only one person guarding the hostage, so we quickly went in and broke his chains so we could attempt to escape with him. We weren't in the clear yet, though. The guard came rushing in with a bow and arrow, firing off arrows like Rambo and just attacking us willy-nilly. Her attack promptly came to an end after we smashed her head in, though. Our new addition to the team, though, however, did get an infection from the fight. And shortly thereafter, we had a group of tribespeople coming to raid us. Unfortunately, though, everybody was having a breakdown because of the awful living conditions in this new area. During the battle, Trakenser was actually caught off guard by a tribesperson during his mental break, and unfortunately was murdered. And just as the tribespeople had done multiple times before, they knocked down our new recruit and ended up kidnapping him and taking him to do God knows what. These monsters know no bounds. Sometime later, Coyote received word from a man who offered to help out around the place if he could just stick around here for a short period of time, which Coyote did accept. Coyote and the stranger even buried Trakenser together. They had a funeral for him, and they even mourned him together. The stranger did not know Trakenser, but he was a good man. After some time, the man decided he didn't want to stick around with Coyote here in this death trap that he called a mountain, so he decided to leave. Some time had actually passed once again, and we had a wanderer going by the name of Deadlift asking to join us. We were in no place to be picky about who stuck around here and helped out, so we promptly accepted his offer and allowed him to become part of our family. And I suppose it's a good thing that we did as well, because Deadlift went straight into mining and he was one hell of a worker. We ended up getting word from 2 more refugees who were offering to help us out if they were allowed to stick around the base for a little while. It seems that we were a post of sorts for nomads in this land. One of the nomads were wonderful, absolutely wonderful at planting rice as well, which was very handy. Unfortunately, though, Deadlift flew into a murderous rage and decided to kill one of the nomads. I have no idea as to why, but the nomads had to team up on him and knock him down to keep him from just blowing the girl's brains out. We had some wild people in the area, in which one of the nomads were attempting to tame one of them, and then the wild person attempted to bite the nomad on the neck, and we ended up having to send the wild person to the creator. Sometime later, we ended up having another tribal raider come at us, but this time we were prepared. It was 3-on-1, baby, because somebody was having a mental breakdown, but we were prepared. We kicked and scratched and shot and stabbed until the tribesperson was no more and their soul had left their body. We ended up having a lad named John offer to join us out here in our wonderland, and in exchange, the Lord would plague this land with some type of toxic sludge in the air. We did, of course, accept this offer because we were short on manpower. And in the green mist arose 2 tribespeople who were coming to attack us, as they always do. One of the tribespeople were apparently very nimble and got right by our traps and began chasing us away from our home as we shot at them. Our new buddy John ended up taking quite a bit of damage, and our crops were also burning, so we had to run to try to put those out. Unfortunately, during the battle, John's leg was cut off, and I had no idea until it was a little bit too late, and he was already bleeding out. I assumed he just got stabbed somewhere, and we didn't have anyone that could tend to him, so he ended up dying. And the loss of John, though, came with another open door because somebody named Glasses was being chased by a manhunting group of snow hares. So once again, we offered to let them join us. Hopefully, Glasses, unlike John and our tribesperson that we rescued earlier in the episode, wouldn't die immediately after coming home with us. Coyote and Deadlift would take Glass's safety into their own hands by attacking the snow hares on their own and trying to make sure that Glasses was safe. We did eventually end up killing the snow hares, and Deadlift took the walk of shame back to his bed with his eyes cut all to pieces, as well as his other body parts, and went to rest. While everyone was healing, we would have to dig a shallow grave out in the desert for John to be buried in. He did not last very long, but hopefully Glasses lasts longer. We are attempting to take as many people as possible right now, though, to try and rebuild an empire. Will it be a leather capital city? Possibly. Possibly we will be bandits. Who knows? This is a new story and a new empire that we are building. But that is going to do it for this part of our Rawhide series. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are absolutely wonderful, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.